everybody. I'm Bronwyn. Welcome. Everyone's in there nice. I know. So, thank you, Greta. That was awesome and humorous, and I was like very happy to be laughing this morning. So, here we are, a little bit different than Greta's. What's one of the things? What she talked about? Color, right? So that's one of the big things that we see that's a difference between what we were just thinking about. Shelly Reed is an artist. She was, let's see, born in New York City in 1958. She lives in Boston, Massachusetts. She is in the collection of the Boston MFA, the De Cordova Museum, and many other museums of art. So, actually, if everybody would just turn around and look at the paintings instead of at me, it's much more interesting. It's much more interesting. So what Shelly likes to do is look at historic paintings and sort of collage them together. Sometimes she's taking a direct painting and interpreting it in black and white and removing some things. Sometimes she's collaging. In the case of the piece behind me, which is gigantic, it is, let's see, I have it in here, 47 feet long and 7 feet high in panels. And I'm going to just read you a couple of quotes from Shelly, and then we can talk about some of her imagery a little closer. So this gigantic piece is called In Dubious Battle, and then we've got other individual pieces back behind you. What she says about the title is that it's addressing an exchange between nature and culture through its title and imagery. She says, the title comes from a line in John Milton's poem Paradise Lost. In Dubious Battle references a struggle between God and Satan, but in a broader and secular sense, it might also reference the battles we're involved in with ourselves as beings, trying to live ethically, but also prey to our own animal instincts. So, she's got a lot of different scenarios going on here. So if you think about that quote, she's using a whole bunch of different paintings, and she's also, now I'm going to read another little quote from her about black and white and why she's choosing to paint in black and white. She says, black and white allows me to focus on the psychological aspect, the gaze, the violence, the interpersonal dances. If there were bright red blood spurting in all directions, looking at the lion being bitten by dogs over here, way over in the corner by Jonathan, In Dubious Battle would be one kind of experience. So she's removing that, sort of a visceral reaction to color. Without it, you were able to look more closely and maybe be surprised by the story being told. She's also she uses all of these historical influences, but she's also really interested in us as viewers making our own connections and stories with all of these animals. So if we have that background, it's great, but also she wants us to be able to bring our own stories into these pieces. Let's see. What else? I don't know. Let's look around and let's talk about one that you guys are particularly attracted to.
Don't feel close. It's really,
yeah,
it's amazing up close. It's much more three-dimensional.
He's done so much for me.
So it is what's really interesting about a lot of the pieces that she's drawing from is these periods of time had very specific symbols that these animals were signifying. So fruit and flowers and architecture and vases and dogs and wild animals all had symbols to the time that they were painted in. So she's playing on that, but she's also playing on what we think these animals symbolize to us.
So Robin, in the very, very corner here is a peaceful rabbit. Is that a symbol, or I mean?
So one of the things that she also, I think, is really interested in is wild versus tame animals and how those things cross over. So in terms of the rabbit, as Wendy's asking, it is a very peaceful looking animal, looking at these supposedly like tamed animals being really wild. That's one way of looking at it. And one thing that Debbie over here was just talking to me about was she's done a really amazing job stitching all of the background together in this mural. So, you know, this arch becomes a tree, which then, you know, moves into some more architecture. I think, see if I'm wrong on this, Carrie, but I think what she's doing is having you read from the left over to the right. And if you look over there, there's more culture, there's more architecture, there's fruit, still lives, you know, things like that. And as you move to the right, things get more and more wild, which is really interesting. So, and then, you know, we get a really deep landscape going back there. We have a, you know, over there we've got a marble floor, and then we've got, you know, sort of more dirt and trees on this side. So, you know, reading left to right. Let's see. Another thing that I think is really interesting, I'll talk a little bit about over here, is if you spent much time in our museum, we have a painting by Edwin Landseer in the Widener Gallery. Here's a tiny little postage stamp of the same sort of painting that she was referencing, the same artist. And does anybody drink Glenfiddich?
Yes,
or however you say it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Has anybody ever banked with the Hartford company? So both of those companies use Landseer in their marketing schemes.
Really?
So, and that's a really interesting tie to the way that we use art in our culture and advertising. But also, we have, so go and look at this painting that she's not referencing our painting, but he painted a lot of these stags, these red deer. And the other thing that I think is really interesting, please on your way to lunch, go look in the Widener Gallery. We have a painting by a really famous artist, Jericho, of two lions in a very sort of idealistic scene. And that artist, Jericho, actually copied those two lions from a Rubens painting in the Louvre. So we have art in this museum that's doing a similar thing to what Greta and Shelly are doing, is they're using and copying other works and reinterpreting them in a way for their own means. Let's see. This piece I think is really interesting because she's titling it Predator and Prey. And what she's playing a little game with herself. We would say, oh, you know, normally like a swan might be prey, but the painting that she is referencing, the swan looks crazy and mean, and it might be the predator. So she's playing with that sort of idea that we have about predator and prey. Let's see.
Bird concert.
Let's talk a little bit with Carrie about these educational components, because a lot of the stuff that I've just sort of been alluding to is in these great things that Carrie's put together, and Grace in this table.
Great, thank you, Roman. Yes, we've all been working
collaboratively with Shelly to produce some of the interpretive pieces for this exhibit, which has been really exciting. She has been phenomenal in providing us with really great ideas for this digital interactive as well as our low-tech interactives, both of which we'll chat about right now. So again, because this is the sneak peek, the computers aren't perfectly programmed yet, so you're also getting a sneak peek of the digital interactive as well. But I just wanted to take an opportunity to show you all, the type of insight that we can have into Shelly Reed's practice of appropriation and recontextualization of art historical images. So this is the name of the game for Shelly Reed. She is an art history buff. She spends her time, it sounds like much like Greta, looking through art history books, getting inspired by these kind of mysterious narratives in the pieces, maybe not being able to know exactly what's happening, but that's what inspires her to work from them. So in some cases, Shelly is grabbing specific images from masterworks of the past, mostly the 1700s and 1800s, and recombining them in a sort of collage. So in Dubious Battle, the large mural here is a perfect example of that technique. In some cases, which is best exemplified by these three larger works over here, Shelly is taking a specific work and reconstituting the work in its entirety. At first glance, they might look very similar, but the more you kind of study them, these little changes emerge. And both techniques are really exciting, especially when you get to actually see the reference material that she's been working with. And that's the whole purpose of this interactive here. So folks will come up to this screen. We have both images to look at as well as some audio. And yeah, feel free to come on around if you want to see. You can also see an image on the other side here. But all the principal works in this exhibition, aside from the Landseer deer, are all represented here. So any of these images that you wanted to explore further, you would have the opportunity to do so. So, for instance, let's say we wanted to explore in Dubious Battle. Let me just touch right here. Now we can select a specific set of panels from In Dubious Battle to explore. So does anyone have a part of In Dubious Battle they'd like to look at further? Peacock. Peacock. Excellent. All right, so we'll click on this first panel here. So as you can see, we have a close-up of the panels here, and then we have these little bubbles highlighting specific regions of the artwork. So this is where you can look at Shelly's source material that she used to create these images. So we mentioned the peacock specifically. If you just tap right here on the peacock, the original image by the artist comes up, a painting done in 1680, certainly, a masterwork of the past. And we can, sort of see the similarities between this peacock and her peacock, and maybe some differences as well. Now, Shelly doesn't want it to be a game of seek and find. She doesn't want people to try and spot all the differences. That being said, it is really exciting to see some of the original imagery that she's working from. We could do that with any of the areas on this painting here. So, on the dog, for instance, we see the dog here, but also if we look at this entire scene, we start to see where the larger scene has emerged. So, a lot to explore, and though the specific, reference material that we see here, we really focused on pulling some of her representations of animals, specifically, because, it is the National Museum of Wildlife Art. However, it should be known that Shelly is incredibly detailed and meticulous with the amount of detail that she's pulling from these works of the past. And pretty much, you name it in this image, it has come from, a well-respected painter of the past. Whether it's a piece of fruit, detail in the architecture, rock formation. I mean, there would be no way to put these all into one presentation. So again, thank you to Shelly for sharing this information with us. But you can explore any of the works in exhibit in this fashion. We can also hear the voice of the artist. Since this one isn't quite ready, I'll play the voice of the artist from this one. But let's see here, what's a good one? Oh, so let's play the audio clip. that corresponds to this piece right here. It's called Caught in the Net after Snyder's. And so feel free to take a look at this image as we listen to Shelly Reed talk about this piece specifically.
When I'm looking at our history, one of the things that I'm looking for is a painting that has a story but not a complete story.
I can't hear it over here.
I'm so sorry about that. How about we turn that up just a bit for everyone? And be sure to come on back and check this out when it's going, because we'll have headphones, really easy to navigate. Sorry about that. We'll try and start that audio clip one more time.
When I'm looking at art history, one of the things that I'm looking for is a painting that has a story but not a complete story. So there's something that's kind of mysterious about the narrative and allows me to sort of wonder about what might actually be going on. I did a painting called Caught in the Net after Snyder's. In my painting, you see a lion that's struggling in a net. But in the original painting by Frank Snyder's, the painting is a little bit longer, and on the left-hand side at the edge of the net, there's a little mouse that's gnawing and gnawing away at the net. And the painting basically talks about the story of how the mouse is going through the lion, and how someone so small can help someone so large. I left that off, and I guess that's to be thought about.
Did you notice how Shelly left off the mouse and Greta left off the rat?
Very nice. A great connection. So that's the general premise of this interactive we have here. A lot to explore. We would welcome everyone to come back and take a closer look at these works. You'll definitely learn about some really incredible old masters from the 1700s, 1800s, 1600s in some cases. And, you know, it should be noted that Shelly, in this way, with this appropriation and recontextualization, is really following the tradition of much of art history. You know, many painters are working from the pieces of those who came before them for both study and for inspiration. So, you know, while she does admit that she steals imagery, that's a very long-held and well-respected artistic tradition, so it's really exciting to see it applied in a contemporary setting in this way.
Low-tech?
Yeah, Grace, do you want to speak to our low-tech interactive table?
Absolutely. So we've decided to complement the digital interactive with some low-tech works. First, we have this puzzle that I'm going to tell you right now is really difficult. It has, you can come closer if you'd like to see what's going on here. It has different portions of the panel on any side, so you can flip it over and start making a different part of the panel. I'll give you a try. Just turn it. So this is different portions, and what this is speaking to is that I think was mentioned earlier is that even though all of these panels seem to have a narrative that go together, each transition is a little funny, where you're allowed to put your own narrative in there and sort of move things around. It's almost as if we're giving you the opportunity to take a panel off the wall and place it in a different location, thinking about what if the horse was talking to the peacock rather than the peacock looking at the dog. That's one interactive that we have. And then we have another book here in which also speaks to narrative, and when we've highlighted different portions of the panel, so once again, the peacock and the dog, allowing you to see the entire image, and then asking you what you think they're talking about. We want visitors to really have the opportunity to bring their own narrative into this work and their own interpretation, because that is such a primary element. And then these will move into the children's gallery. Shelly Reed gave us permission to do a line drawing of the concert, the bird concert, and so we made it into a coloring page. And we are actually going to produce this large scale and have it as an interactive for one of our mixed medias. That's for Shelly Reed's and Dubious Battle, so that you can come in and actually color it in like a giant coloring page on a very large scale. So this is what we've produced. Again, come back and work with these things, and if you have suggestions of things you'd like to see, or elements in the painting that you notice that you want to talk about, please feel free to let us know.
Thanks, everybody, for coming to Sneak Peek program.